Spinosaurus. Again, every time we think we understand this animal, we don't. Every reconstruction, every documentary, every confident statement about how it lived, how it hunted, how it moved. Give it a few years and something changes. In February 2026, it happens again. A new species described in Science, Spinosaurus mirabilis. New skull anatomy, a sickle-shaped crest, a different ecological context. And suddenly there is a real possibility that we've been arguing about the wrong Spinosaurus for the last decade. I could have ignored it, close the tab and move on, but Spinosaurus isn't just a dinosaur. It's what happens when science tries to reconstruct a giant predator from fragments, photographs, and bones that no longer exist. And every time it seems like the story is over, it starts again. So, Egypt, the Western Desert. Ernst Stromer, a German paleontologist, receives crates of bones excavated from sandstone roughly 100 million years old. In 1915, he described a new species, Spinosaurus aegypticus, and even then it's clear this is something strange. Neural spines on the vertebrae nearly 2 meters tall, a long narrow snout, conical teeth with no serrations, not built for tearing flesh but for gripping something slippery. But the skeleton is incomplete. Parts of skull, a few vertebrae, fragments of limbs. This isn't an animal, it's a puzzle with most of the pieces missing. And from these scapes, paleontology began building a legend. In 1944, Munich is bombed. And among everything that burns that night, the only original skeleton of Spinosaurus burns with it. War doesn't choose what to destroy, it doesn't care. All that survives Stromer's photographs, drawing and measurements, nothing else. Think about that for a moment. A man describes an animal that will become one of the most recognizable dinosaurs in history. And then, a few years later, not a single real bone remains. Spinosaurus became a ghost dinosaur, a massive predator that exists only on paper. And on the papers, everyone sees that they want to see. What follows indicates of finds scattered across North Africa. Vertebrae, jaws, teeth, isolated bones that might belong to one animal or the several different ones. In 1996, Sigelmasasaurus brevicollis is described, based on a handful of massive neck vertebrae from Morocco. And then begins what happens in paleontology on a regular basis, an argument about what this thing actually is. Some says it's a distinct genus, others a variant of Spinosaurus, others still probably a taxon that shouldn't have been named in the first place. All of them are reading the same bones. That doesn't mean anyone is an idiot. It means bones are unreliable witnesses. They don't speak. They stay silent and you decide for yourself what the silence means. Paleontology has two camps. Splitters, those who tend to divide, who see differences as new species. Lampers, those who consolidate, who see differences as variation within a single species. Imagine a million years from now, someone finds a Pomeranian and a Russian Borzoi. Could they figure out these were the same species? Given that soft tissue is gone, DNA has degraded, and all context is lost. That's really what paleontology is working with every single day. Saurophaganaxis maximus, a massive predator from Oklahoma, looking like an Allosaurus but larger and heavier. Bones found in the late 19th century, formally described in 1995. And immediately, was this its own genus or just a very large Allosaurus? Decades of arguments, several revisions, positions shifted. Then in December 2024, a new study comes out. Some bones apparently belong to a sauropod. Others might belong to an unknown species of Allosaurus. Saurophaganaxis maximus itself is officially designated a nomen dubium, a doubtful taxon whose name can no longer be considered reliable. 30 years of debate. The conclusion, the animal, as it was described, may never have existed. It gets back to old questions with new tools. And sometimes the answer isn't the no anyone expected. Which is actually why, when Sirena say in 2026, this is a new species, these aren't empty words. Behind them is an argument that other scientists have already started challenging, and will keep challenging for a long time. Jurassic Park 3 didn't just show a Spinosaurus. It defined one. Massive, upright, built for combat. The predator that killed the king. That image stuck. It became the default until 2014. Nizar Ibrahim and his team published a new description in Science. Short hind limbs. Center of mass shifted forward. Dense bones, the kind found in animals that spend a lot of time in water because they don't need to float, they need ballast. Spinosaurus is no longer just a big predator with a sail. It becomes a candidate for a semi-aquatic lifestyle, maybe actively swimming. In 2020, a toll is found. Tall neural spines forming a wide, flexible surface. That is not the tail of a land animal. That's a rudder or a fin. Or maybe not, because other researchers look at the same data and say, hold on, this doesn't actually prove active swimming. Maybe it just stood with deep in water and waited for fish to come to it. A very large heron. And as it turned out, the exact framing makes it into the 2026 paper. So, new species. Distinguishing primary by its skull anatomy and a sickle-shaped crest, bony structures that in life would have been covered in keratin, making the crest ever longer and more prominent. The overall skeleton resembles classic Spinosaurus aegypticus, but the geological context and anatomy suggest this is generally a different animal. Serena calls it a hell heron in the official scientific paper, a massive predator that hunted staying in water roughly waist deep, wading in a solid legs, spending most of its time in shallow trap where large fish were concentrated with however to go. So, a heron just enormous and from the Cretaceous. Now the important consequence. The animal live 500 to 1000 kilometers from the nearest coastline. That hits the fully aquatic Spinosaurus hypothesis directly. If it lived that far from the sea, it couldn't have been a strictly marine predator. It was flexible. It worked with whatever was nearby. What does this change? Practically everything. If Mirabilis is truly a separate species, then some of the finds from recent decades may have been assigned to the wrong animal. What happens to Sigilmasasaurus then? How many different Spinosaurus actually live across North Africa? Which conclusions about behaviors and anatomy need revisiting? I don't know. Serena has his position. Ibrahim apparently isn't rushing to agree. The debate continues. The authors of the paper propose looking the Spinosaurid history as three distinct stages. First, in Jurassic, an elongating skull specialization in fish, the group splits into Baryonychins and Spinosaurines. Second, the early Cretaceous. Expansion along the shores of the ancient Tethys Sea. Increasing body size. Dominance in coastal ecosystem. Third, the early last Cretaceous. Maximum size, deep specialization, and gradual narrowing of range, and extinction around 95 billion years ago. Spinosaurus mirabilis appears to represent that final phase, the last act. Spinosaurus began as fragments in Crete. Then it became a legend. Then ash. Then it come back, piece by piece, bone by bone. Individual teeth that might belong to anyone. Then it was reinterpreted, then reinterpreted again. Then it got a tail, then lost the certainty, then a hell heron, a new species, new questions, new arguments. Spinosaurus isn't about a dinosaur, it's about how we come to know anything at all. Spinosaurus, again, and honestly, good.